Winning streak for the Panthers over at 7, and another home game against the New Jersey Devils where the Panthers get goalied.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, November 13th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You could start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. So the Florida Panthers fall to the New Jersey Devils in the first of two matchups in the next 3 days between these two teams. And as we spoke about it, two teams at the top of their divisions. And we spoke about it, how the New Jersey Devils it looks as if their championship window is starting to open, and bound for the New Jersey Devils bouncing back after a shutout loss against the San Jose Sharks. The Panthers, they come to the arena once again in their bathrobes and had plenty of opportunities, had a 5-on-3, which eventually in the second period they scored on the power play, but still played from behind for most of the night. Never had a lead in this game, as they once again they fall 4-1, the final from Amerant Bank Arena in Sunrise. And joining me on this post-game edition of the show, it is a Winans Wednesday, which means Jacob Winans is back here on the show. And Jacob, welcome back. And like we spoke about pre-recording, my friend, it's been a little while since we've had a post-game edition of the show where we're talking about a loss.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a little bit, especially for myself. I missed last week, was out sick. I had no voice, so I apologize for not being on, but happy to be back. And I wish we were on to discuss a win, but those are the breaks sometimes. And that's just kind of how this one went. But overall, I'm not too upset, not too moved by how they played. 7-game win streak is always nice, especially when you have a trip across the world in the middle of it and still win games. They won in a variety of ways over those 7 games. Some track meets, some lockdown games, some excellent goalie performances, some overtime, some shootout. It was really solid win streak. So if you can string together mini win streaks and then put together one or two longer ones like that over the course of a season, you're going to find yourself in a good spot. And right now they lead the division. Very long way to go, but off to a pretty good early start. And the way they played tonight, easily could have won that game. The 4-1 scoreline there is not indicative of how close that game was. It was great action. It was tight the entire way. A little bit of, I won't say playoff hockey, playoff intensity, but it's two playoff caliber teams playing against each other. And Panthers were up to the challenge and just didn't get the result tonight. But the way they played, you're going to win a lot of hockey games playing like that.
Yeah, and for them, when you think about how this game was a 1-goal game before the final 5 minutes for that, right before the New Jersey Devils broke it open for them. I mean, you think about who they lost to, and you're thinking when it comes to the streak, and when you're thinking of who you lose to. I mean, you try to at least look at the process of where the Panthers went in this game. I mean, but at the same time, I mean, the Panthers, there were times where they were a little sloppy when it came to just reading stretch passes. I mean, there were multiple times where the New Jersey Devils were trying to flip the puck in the zone and try to alley-oop it, and then the Panthers still able to get back at times, but still taking a lot of risk and really playing on their toes a lot of the time whenever the New Jersey Devils did get out in transition. We didn't even mention the Panthers had a last-minute scratch of Sam Bennett, so the lines were a little bit out of whack there. The Panthers did have a 5-on-3 later on in the period, which they did not convert on that one, and even had pressure in the second period. I mean, it was a tale of two different periods in the second frame, where the Panthers eventually broke through with Sam Reinhart scoring on the power play on that redirection. Now Sam Reinhart ties the league lead with 12 goals with Cole Caulfield. But you think of just the transition game for the New Jersey Devils. I mean, turning over the puck in the neutral zone where Timo Meier scores on a breakaway. So that's really for the Panthers. And also the New Jersey Devils, they averaged 10 blocks a game before tonight. They had 20. Jacob Markstrom had 1.06 goals save above expected after the first period. So it felt like once the Jacob Markstrom really got into this one, there was really a comfort level of this New Jersey Devils going into a road barn for them to just try to get this win. So it really just came down to the New Jersey Devils taking away the shooting lanes for the Panthers, and also how well they were in transition.
Yeah, and it really started with Markstrom in the net being so rock solid today. And he's one of those type of goalies who, if you don't get to him early, you're going to have a hard time getting to him, because he tends to play better when he sees a lot of pucks. And I think he really showed that. His first period was excellent. The Panthers had the lion's share of scoring chances. They end up trailing, but they got all the best chances in that period. New Jersey was very opportunistic. They didn't get a ton of opportunities, but the ones they got, for the most part, they capitalized on. The only one that was a really golden grade A chance that they didn't score on is the breakaway save on Dawson Mercer, which was excellent from Spencer Knight, and he deserved better in his performance
absolutely.
tonight. The stats don't say it necessarily. Gives up 3 goals. Save percentage is going to be under 90, but he and Bob have both suffered from how good the defense has been at suppressing shots. It's like they aren't seeing nearly as many shots as most goalies are, so their save percentage doesn't look as great. But Spencer played a great game tonight, took away a lot of their best chances, and gave the Panthers every opportunity to win and stay in the game. And that breakaway save was huge. But other than that, Panthers had one breakdown really on the Timo Meier breakaway that ends up being the game-winning goal. The Bratt pass to Jack Hughes, that's just an otherworldly play. Like yes, probably should have someone backdoor covering Hughes, but you're not expecting a backhand pass to land right on the tape from the opposite end of the ice near the Panthers bench. It's a pretty ridiculous play there, and sometimes you just got to tip your hat at the skill. And it was clear the Devils had the game plan. They know they're a faster team than the Panthers. The Panthers are more of a heavy physical type of team. Tried the alley-oop look a few times. They got a couple of good chances off of it, but for the most part, Panthers stayed pretty prepared for that. They obviously knew that was going to be the game plan coming in. But yeah, overall, it was a opportunistic Devils team. It was a Panthers team that was playing with some really shuffled lines and couldn't capitalize on the few chances they got. The 5-on-3, you'd like to bury that. They didn't. You need a little more from your top 6 in a game like this. They got it defensively, for sure. Barkov was all over Jack Hughes in their matchups, and he and Hischier almost canceled each other out, which is what you expect from your the number 1 Cs on each team. But yeah, being a little shorthanded, having the jumbled lines, not nearly as opportunistic as New Jersey. That's kind of the result you get. But overall, if this is a playoff series, for example, I'm not at all concerned. The Panthers have the physical advantage, the defensive advantage, the time of possession advantage. I think
their forecheck was great.
It was fantastic, and the face-off circle, they were pretty good. I'm not overall concerned with anything I saw tonight, except maybe the post could be a little bit kinder going forward. I don't want to see that luck continue.
Yeah, and once again, what a pass from Bratt to Jack Hughes. And also for the Panthers also tried that later in the game, Erod to Uvis Balinskis, which ended up being stopped. And that Spencer Knight stop. Yeah, that Spencer Knight stop on Mercer came right minutes before that Timo Meier goal. So you think it was just, man, you get that save for Spencer Knight there, and then the Panthers could try to maybe carry that momentum and just get that next goal. And hey, maybe that was that if they had they won that game, that would have been my moment of that moment where we thought they won, but hey, it didn't end up being that way for the Panthers.
And it's not often you're going to see the Panthers make the exact same mistake defensively twice. It was a pretty unlucky bounce in the neutral zone, but you'd like to see Tkachuk get that puck deeper. And I always say this, if the mistake that kills your team comes from one of your best, most consistent superstar players, you're not nearly as concerned about it, because Matthew Tkachuk's not going to have a back-breaking turnover every game. So it's an unfortunate bounce that it took for him, and don't like to see the same mistake made twice in the span of a couple minutes, but it's overall not really anything that's raising any alarms.
Which I have a little bit to discuss on Matthew Tkachuk coming up in the next segment, as we are going to transition over to that as we discuss our 3 duds of the game and the moment where we thought the game was lost. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Omaha Steaks, and nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off gourmet gifts site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 with promo code NHL. With 5 generations of experience, they constantly deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $89.99. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more. Save 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get extra $30 extra with promo code NHL and a $30 reward when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code NHL. Minimum purchase may apply. Also, this episode is brought to you by SelectQuote and the World Series, Super Bowl, Olympics, Stanley Cup Final. The world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing, teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. SelectQuote licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy in your family's end zone. SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. You invest so much time to take care of yourself and to be the healthiest, best version of you. SelectQuote exclusive policies can reward that effort. And these policies are more affordable than you think. You could get coverage for up to $1 million for as little as $20 per month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonNHL. Go to selectquote.com/lockedonNHL today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedonNHL. Segment number 2 here on this Wednesday, November 13th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Wednesday, as the Florida Panthers dropped to the New Jersey Devils by a final score of 4-1 in Sunrise in the first of 2 games this week against New Jersey, which they will also face off against each other on Thursday from Sunrise, Florida once again. So, Jacob, so 3 duds of the game for me. I'm going to give an honorable mention. Before I get to my 3, I'm going to go with Paul Maurice, just with an honorable mention, just the way he shuffled his lines. Boqvist, Erod, and Tkachuk hadn't been a combination really much before with that change. I get you want to put Verhaeghe back with Alexander Barkov, but of the 9 shot attempts that group had at 5-on-5, only 2 landed on net, and all the 3 chances against, all 3 of them landed on net. So it was really about a lot of quantity, not quality for their chances, and just not a big mix there. I'm surprised we didn't see Lundell go up a spot there for the Panthers there. So that's an honorable mention for how he put things together. Number 3, I'm going to put Nico Mikkola as the 3rd dud for this one. Verhaeghe and Forsling were already drawing towards Hischier on that breakaway. And then you saw Mikkola maybe a little confused on whether to get to Stefan Nason on that third goal, which created that opportunity for Paul Cotter to make it 3-1 for the New Jersey Devils there. Number 2, Uvis Belinskis. Quite a few breakaway opportunities. I mean, we love what Uvis Belinskis brings on the power play, but at 5-on-5, when the Panthers are up in transition, and I know he's played forward and defense, and I could see how, I know he's played pro hockey overseas, but when you're shifting from forward to defense, I know that, and I know with how well he could skate, sometimes when it comes to going north-south up the ice, whenever you do get the puck, sometimes his skates are a little faster than his brain from what I've seen at times. And that has led to the various breakaway opportunities that we've seen, even though they haven't really resulted in losses. He left Nate Schmidt out to dry on that Timo Meier goal, even though Matthew Tkachuk did turn the puck over, but also was the on that Spencer Knight save on Dawson Mercer. It was Belinskis that was responsible for that breakaway opportunity for the Panthers. And number 1, Matthew Tkachuk on the first goal for the Devils, the Jack Hughes one, overskated on Dougie Hamilton's stretch, and it caused the Panthers to be a little bit discombobulated. Jesper Boqvist was like a little confused of where to go, and then you see that backdoor feed there. And also after he turned the puck over, after he tried chipping it up, and Siegenthaler intercepted it. According to the simulator, which you can see at NHL.com, Matthew Tkachuk stopped skating after that. So I know Paul Maurice talks about not cheating the game and everything, and I know you can't do it for a complete 60 minutes because you're tired and there's long shifts as well. But that was one moment where they didn't live up to their whole not cheating the game there. And I thought he was maybe trying to cherry pick in case there was a stretch there for the Panthers. So those are my 3. Who are your 3, Jacob?
Yeah, my number 3 is actually going to be Matthew Tkachuk for a lot of the same reasons you just gave. It's hard to pin it on him too much, given that he was playing with a really unfamiliar line. You're not going to see too many Tkachuk Boqvist minutes. It was a last minute change from what we heard, and just Paul Maurice getting a little bit too cute for my liking with the line combinations. Anton Lundell's played well on line 2 when he's been given the opportunity. You'd just like to see him slide up, roll with what you got there. And Boqvist has done just fine as the third line center in limited time when Barkov was out. So it's a role he's comfortable playing. I think they ended up with a little bit too much sauce there, and Tkachuk paid the price. His game slipped tonight. He didn't play great. So I'll give him the 3rd. Number 2 for me is Mackie Samoskevich. I thought, he draws back in the lineup. Wasn't expected to play, but with Bennett out, Mackie gets an opportunity. They didn't just bury him on the 4th line. They put him on line 3. He's got Lundell. He's got Listerine, and he's got some talent to play with. And then this is also not a team, he was taken out of the lineup against Philly because Philly's a heavy team. You don't want to play him necessarily in the heavy game. You think he'd be more effective in a skill game. New Jersey's a skill game. That's one where you'd like to see Mackie make a little bit of an impact. I'm not saying he has to score, not saying he has to assist necessarily, but just make an impact offensively, drive the play a little bit. You're not playing against the big heavy forecheck in this one that you would have seen against Philly. So I felt like it was a missed opportunity for him. You get back in the lineup, you want to make something happen in your opportunity, and this is how you stick around in the NHL. I felt like it was a good matchup for him on paper, and he didn't really produce. So Mackie's my number 2. My number 1, I was a little bit torn on this because defensively there are a couple that you could put there that didn't really play that great defensively. But number 1 for me is going to be Uvis Belinskis. I thought, like you said, he gave a couple of breakaways. Overskates a couple of plays there when he's got to be a little bit more patient. Like you mentioned, not cheating the game. Not cheating the game for me on that Matthew Tkachuk play is I know you have a lot of confidence in Tkachuk. You know he's going to do the right things, but don't try to jump all the way up into the rush until you see that puck get deep. Yes. Don't try to beat the play up the ice. Wait till the puck is safely past the red line or in the zone before you start jumping up, and it gets batted back the other way, and now you're out of position. You don't want to hang your goalie out or your D partner out to dry too many times, and Uvis will bounce back. But yeah, like you said, I think he relies a little bit too much on his skating at times. He knows how great of a skater he is, so he takes some risks and chances that you don't necessarily need to take and he's counting on himself to get back, which is tougher to do that at the NHL level. So he's my number one dud of the night, but he did play well in the power play. Got a primary assist on that, and he's done pretty well on power play 1. So you take the good with the bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And we hope that this is a learning experience for Uvis here. And the moment where we thought the game was lost for at least for me was the embellishment call. There was a 4-on-4 where Sam Reinhart went to the box after a roughing call with Stefan Nason after a little bit of a push. Maybe he thought he was tripped. He bumps Nason into Jacob Markstrom, and then they go, okay, there's 4-on-4. And then Tkachuk is tripped up by Brett Pesce, and then he gets called for embellishment, which, looking at the replay, I don't know how the heck you embellish that one where his feet leave the ground and he's called for that. So that, with two of your biggest contributors going to the box there, I know, and then New Jersey capitalizes shortly after, and it was a 2-1 game when that happened. That for me was when the game was lost. How about you, my friend?
Yeah, I was tempted to say that when the Panthers didn't score on the 5-on-3, that I knew it was going to be a long night. They ended up getting it tied, so I don't want to use that because I guess technically it's a tie game afterwards, and you can't point to that one moment when you had the game tied. The embellishment was really bad. We could probably spend plenty of time talking about it, but a game this early in the season, I don't want to harp on the refs too much, but that was just a terrible call. And you're going to get some of those, but that one was flat out awful. The moment where I thought the game was lost for me was the high stick to Barkov's chin that went uncalled.
Yes.
It looked like a just textbook cookie cutter high stick, and technically, if you want to go by the book, that's a 4-minute power play. Because he did leave the ice, go to the bench, and get treatment for a bloody chin. So that's a high stick that draws blood. That should be 4 minutes, and Panthers should have had a lengthy power play. They don't get that opportunity, and for me, I knew the game was lost because at that point it seemed like refs are done calling penalties tonight. You're not going to get another chance on the power play, and you're going to have to find a way to grind one out. And I didn't think they had it in them. New Jersey was just kind of in a groove at that point. And then just a couple minutes later, my theory kind of comes to fruition when Sam Reinhart was very clearly interfered with behind the net. No call on that either. And it's like, yep, the refs are finished calling penalties tonight. You've already exhausted all of your power play opportunities. So that's when I felt the game was lost, when Barkov took that high stick with no call.
Yeah, high hit by Paul Cotter there on that one. And then Paul Cotter had a swing of a stick to Uvis Balinskis near the bench. I mean, that's twice in a span of a week that there's a swinging stick going near the head. I mean, we saw that happen to Lundell last week, and I was like, oh my God, the sticks have been a little bit out of control here. So, I mean, this is something that we hope that the NHL continues to crack down on, because, man, getting that and losing your chicklets, I mean, hey, there's hockey players. That's what they sign up for. I guess it's a little bit of a badge of honor when you don't, just ask Brent Burns, someone like him for sure. So we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we are going to provide a little bit of an update for Sam Bennett. We're going to discuss the Jonah Gadjovich fight as well. And unfortunately, will the bathrobes see the end? We're going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And get ready to tackle the NFL action with America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get 100 in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Third and final segment here on this Wednesday, November 13th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Wednesday edition of the show. So, want to start this segment on a little bit of a high note. I mean, yes, we spoke about in the first two segments how we like the process of the Panthers. In a 7-game series, you like your chances if you play that kind of game over and over again for the Panthers. But let's get on a higher note on this one. So we saw fans in the stands with their bathrooms. Something I spoke about with David Dwork last week when the Panthers returned from Finland. So what was your reaction when you saw the fans there, Jacob, wearing the bathrobes in the arena?
Hey, I thought it was awesome, and reminded me a lot of the fans showing up with all the mouth guards, and for a whole section. It just shows you that the fans pay attention to the storylines. They follow the team and everything really that happens with them. And I love that. I love the fan engagement. I love that this is a knowledgeable fan base. And anytime we can get a little thing like that going and run with it, you never know what's going to be the next trend and what's going to be the next part of the franchise's lore and history. So I thought it was super cool. The robes, I don't think we'll see them again. I think after the loss, the robes will be retired. Unfortunately, that's how it goes with hockey superstitions, especially. But that was a fun ride while it lasted. We'll remember that as the robe era.
Yeah, and for that, the Panthers and the fans there, it's a little bit of a connection that you create, and like you said, knowledgeable fan base. Once again for this one, but we also didn't mention yet the fight. The fact that Gadjovich's sweater was over his face and still landed those punches. I know Gadjovich isn't going to play every single night, and with Bennett in the lineup, you could switch Mackie in for speed versus tough guy in the lineup. But that was awesome to watch.
Yeah, I mean, you said Gajic isn't going to be in the lineup every night. During that, there were a couple moments during that fight where I thought we weren't going to see him in the lineup anytime soon because he was in a spot. Anytime the jersey comes up over the head, you're usually looking at the refs to stop the fight. But no, Brenden Dillon is a tough customer. He's got a long history of some pretty good bouts. He's fought some heavyweights, and I believe last year, if I'm not mistaken, when he was with Winnipeg, he beat up Reinhart pretty good. He gave Reinhart a pretty bad black eye in a fight that was really, really one-sided because Reinhart does not fight. I believe I was actually at that game. So yeah, Brenden Dillon's a tough customer, and yeah, Gadjovich, that was epic. I mean, you never want to see anybody get hurt, so that's exactly the type of fight you do like to see. It's two guys going at it. It was a spirited tilt. It lasted a while. The refs let them throw it. They didn't jump in too early, and then they also made sure no one got hurt. So I got to commend them on doing a great job there. But that fight, that's an early contender for fight of the year. Gadjovich was absolutely insane in that one. To keep throwing punches and landing them on target when he's got his head fully in the jersey, that was nuts. And I don't know if you saw a post game, but Brenden Dillon actually got interviewed by the ESPN crew, and they said they counted 37 punches landed on Brenden Dillon, and he said, I don't know, I stopped counting after 20. So he was a good sport about it. He also said he wished he was a power play guy instead of a tough guy because he he took his licks in that one. But yeah, good, clean, hard fight between the two of them, two tough guys, and yeah, I enjoyed it. That was fun.
Yeah, definitely a entertaining hockey game for those two. But We spoke about Sam Bennett missing this one. Paul Maurice did say that he, quote, he came in and tightened up this morning before the morning skate and didn't loosen up over the course of the day, so we couldn't play him. He may come back tomorrow and be 100% fine. If not, it wouldn't be a long-term situation, close quote. So that quote means a whole lot of nothing. It's just, it doesn't tell us anything. It doesn't tell us anything one way or the other. It's just day to day. That's the short version of that is day to day. I'm like, okay, so if the Panthers practice tomorrow, then and if we see them on the ice, we won't necessarily get an answer because it probably won't come down to at least morning skate on Thursday morning. So even if he's not on the ice tomorrow, we'll have to probably wait a few days for that. But also during the first intermission, there's still those conversations on just the overall contract talks between Sam Bennett and the Florida Panthers front office, which John Buccigross gave a little bit of a guess to Kevin Weeks, but it wasn't a confirmation nor a denial from Kevin Weeks. He said 6 times 6.6. And then Kevin Weeks, who's we know as the guy who breaks all the news, or at least the majority of the news. Emily Kaplan also has her fair share of sources when she shares some breaking news. So we're starting to now see a range of where it could be for the Panthers. And I will say this, if the Panthers do re-sign Bennett, short term, it might hurt for the Panthers, but long term, if they do, with what they have up down the middle, I feel like it's going to be a signing that would be worth it if it's around that number for them. So your reaction on just hearing that again for the contract talks.
Yeah, so the two Bennett related storylines there. One, I'll start with the contract for sure. Like you said, short term, it would sting a little bit because it means you probably have to go thinner on D. It probably pushes Ekblad out the door unless he takes a very team friendly discount. And I don't know if the Panthers really want to commit to Ekblad too long term given the injury history. So it raises some questions on D. And definitely opens up the door for a potential trade. Think Etu, think Erod, someone of that AAV would probably have to be moved out at some point here soon. So something to consider there. But long term, Panthers' biggest strength has been their center depth. And we saw that in the playoffs. Bennett gets hurt. Anton Lundell steps up. They don't miss a beat. They continue their playoff run until Bennett gets back, and he immediately makes an impact and sort of takes over that Boston series himself. So their center depth has been huge. Lundell, Barkov, Bennett. If you could keep that trio together for the long term, it almost doesn't matter necessarily as much who you have on the wings. You could really plug and play any wing with those three guys, or you could even consider moving Bennett up to left wing where he's played some pretty good amount of left wing in his career. Did a lot of that in Calgary. He could play left wing in the top 6 if you need to. And I think if they sign him to that deal, could end up being the best way to get long-term production out of him. And also could be the best way to let Anton Lundell continue to develop. And we know what Sam Bennett's capable of in the playoffs. So keeping him around is always going to be good. We talk about the cap going up in the future. $6 million or $7 million deal today doesn't look nearly as bad 3-4 years from now. It's really the equivalent of if someone were to sign a $4 or $5 million deal today, and what that would mean for the cap in this season. So it's not. I'm not too worried about that AAV if that's what it comes out to be, and I'd love to keep him around in Florida for the long term. You want to make sure his health is there. So when you talk about these little minor injuries, I'd be shocked if he plays Thursday. If he doesn't, it's not a big deal. If he misses a week, 2 weeks, we've seen some of these, it tightened up, it's day to day, and it extends out to a week or 2 weeks. It's just kind of the Paul Maurice way sometimes. And there's a method to that. You want guys healthy when it matters, especially a guy like Sam Bennett, the physical style he plays, and also some of the injuries he's had. It's also important to just do right by the player. It's a big year for Bennett. It's a very big year for Bennett. He's playing for a new contract. He's got to prove himself. So do right by the player. Don't put him out there when he's not fully 100%, especially when you're doing so well in the standings. You can afford to be patient. So let's not panic if he misses a game or two. or a week or two. It's bigger picture here. So I'm cool with them playing it safe and playing it cautious, especially with Sam Bennett, where his health is concerned.
Speaking of, Toronto lost tonight, so the Panthers don't lose. They still keep a good amount of their lead in the division as well. So that's another thing, that this loss doesn't actually hurt them. And also for the Sam Bennett extension, if it's a 6-year deal, it'll end in 2031, which the Panthers have used 2030 as a benchmark as far as contract expiring and a whole bunch of trade projections being lifted. So it looks like that we can at least guess that even if it's a 6-year deal, we could guess where the trade protections would land with Sam Bennett, maybe in the last year or the last 2 years for him. And also, speaking of percentage of the cap, I know this isn't Panthers related, but Igor Shesterkin of the New York Rangers, he rejected $11 million, and the newest reports out there are he's trying to look at percentage of the cap and is actually looking at the Carey Price percentage when he signed his extension. So that's, I know we're talking goaltenders as opposed to skaters, but we're seeing like a little bit of an idea of where the players and GMs could see where the cap goes as far as how these guys can still fit in the long term for the Panthers here. So that's another way of continuing to look at that, especially with contracts like Bobrovsky expiring in the next few years. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. A 4-1 loss for the Florida Panthers, but an opportunity to bounce back on Thursday night against the New Jersey Devils. Tell everybody where they can follow you online, my friend.
Yep, you can follow me on X at Jacob Winans 8, and I should be in the building on Thursday for this rematch, so hopefully I'll see some of you guys there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, my friend. See you next week.
Looking forward to it. Thanks.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.